your Architectural Technologies podcast. We are pleased to have Karen Davis from ADNZ here. Welcome to the Architectural Technologist again. We've got Ethan here with us as well. Last time we talked about AI and we went through that in detail, but I had one question I really wanted to hear you talk about, and that was, is design an important part of architectural technology and architectural designers?
Oh, it's great to be back, and thanks so much for having me. Well, how can it not be, right? So for a start, I think things have changed a lot over generations, haven't they? And perhaps it's different in a large architectural firm compared to a small one. But once upon a time, there were lots of large architectural firms, clear hierarchies. You might have a registered architect as the principal and a team of technologists, draftees. And I think we've certainly in New Zealand, we're worlds away from that now. So we have our own membership at ADNZ. We have some of the most incredible designers doing some of the most fantastic work in this country. They run their own practices. Maybe they've got a diploma of architectural technology and 15 or 20 years experience. They're doing the same work as perhaps somebody decades ago would have had to have been a registered architect to do, maybe, or there was a perception of that. Certainly there's a blurring of lines, there's no doubt about it. Architecture's changed, there's so many more professionals involved around a designer now. So there didn't used to be the project managers that there are now. And they're taking a lion's share of responsibility in some places. We have so many more different engineering specialists, fire designers. These were the things that designers and architects used to resolve once upon a time. So the industry has changed, and so there's much greater flexibility and need to recognise that difference and equip new graduates for a vastly different industry, which is actually also at the same time far more complex. This is a really technical environment which has a huge amount of complexity, far greater than it used to be. So many designers say to me, all I needed was 3 or 4 A3 pages and I had the design work. I spoke to an architect not that long ago who told me that they'd spent 7 hours uploading the documentation for one of their projects. That's a long time. That would be the other end of the extreme, right? But it's a different world, it's a different environment.
When I worked in London, I was working on a large team on a large project. It was a 300-metre long shopping centre, and I was one architect among many. But I had 6 draftsmen working for me, and I would hand sketch the details that I wanted. I'd hand them off to the team, and they would draw them. This is in the days before CAD, so they were drawing them with ink. I would design, I would figure out the technical nature of that, and they were just draftsmen at that stage. But of course, now it's not like that. Today, there is the expectation that the architectural technologist isn't just a draftsman, that they are thinking, they're designing. And my argument is that design doesn't stop just because you're detailing. The details are a crucial part of the design philosophy being carried through to the small part, that they all flow through. That it's not just to grab a detail off a tradesman's website. You need to think, is that part of the design that I'm creating? So yes, there's this real blurring of information between them. And I think of the guy I used to work with a lot, a Napier architect, James. And James was a really good designer who came from the world of architectural technology first, then went to architecture school. And there was a lot of those. There's some famous ones in New Zealand. Some of our top architects have actually made that path to get where they are. I think that, for me anyway, design is an important part of architectural technology. We don't have time to cover it in the diploma. And so it worries me that we've got students that we don't have time to teach them about design, and yet we're sending them off into the world at the start of a career where we hope that at some point they'll learn about good design. And I think it's perhaps your role to help get them that next stage.
Absolutely. And I think, and conversely, and I just want to pick this up, I've also spoken to people who have master's degrees who say to me, I don't know how to put a building together. So that's the challenge, isn't it? So our organisation, absolutely. We're here. We're not called Architectural Designers New Zealand for nothing. Is because we see that blurring that you've talked about. Now, we're really proud that many of our members have a really strong background in architectural technology. They're technically excellent, which makes them better designers. And they're proud to say that they're proud of that. And they are really good designers. So they'll have a Diploma of Architectural Technology, a Bachelor of Architectural Studies, a master's degree, and they're doing similar work. So what's that about? They've all come from different journeys, but they've all come almost to the same place, but not quite. Of course, there's diversity and difference across our members. And of course, many are also registered architects or have become registered architects, and more recently, sometimes later in their careers. Our wish and our desire is to make sure there's a really strong emphasis on design. What we expect of our members, of our professional members, to hit that bar to be a certified professional member of ADNZ, there is one of 4 competencies, and it's design. So it's a major emphasis of your assessment, and it's a major emphasis of our professional learning. And it is the area that we have no problem with everybody engaging in, because that's exactly what they're interested in, is design, and that's what they're wanting to be fed into to learn from constantly. It's not the only, of course, but it's absolutely critical. So design is absolutely front of mind for us. But that's not to say that it's not without that strong technical understanding. So that it's that combination. We've been working on a degree level apprenticeship with Cove and Ara Institute of Technology here in Christchurch. And part of that is really about recognising the need for a degree level qualification for architectural technology, but also that can be done through an apprenticeship model, which is something we're really interested in, because many of our members have really valued that application of their work where they've learned something in the workplace which is different to what they learned when they were at Polytech or university. So there's something about practice that is really, applied practice is really important in terms of good outcomes, good design outcomes. And so I think that's what's really interesting. And even the standard that our teams worked on with Ara and Cove on that, number 1, design. Straight off the block, what's the standard that we're looking for? So that design emphasis is absolutely right up there, alongside history and theory and fine arts, mātauranga Māori, urban design and planning, people and environment, brief analysis, communication, professional role, structure, construction and engineering, technologies, finance and regulations, industry context and project delivery. It goes on, sustainability and stewardship. Where did I start? I started with design right from the get-go.
It's fantastic that you're looking at this, because at Polytech you can teach all the technical rules. Then the student can go and build a foundation of technical knowledge, making sure they satisfy all the building regulations. But I was always worried that there's nothing for them to mop up those design things that they need to learn about. And at the Polytech, we don't get a chance to talk about professional practice. What does it mean to be a professional? Whereas what you're talking about is something that will take care of that. That'll actually start talking to them about how does a professional behave separate from just a layperson.
I think that's our whole reason for being, I think, as a professional body like us is, and it's one of those things about being a home for growing professionals. I think it's one thing to finish with a diploma or a degree or a master's. There's another thing to become a professional. So how do you create that for graduates? And I think you need professional bodies like ours, professional communities, which they can join. Even as a student, you feel like there's a home here for you. You've got your home at your institution, but you've got a home beyond that. And we've created a really clear pathway for you so that you're not dumped anywhere, where professional bodies like us are a continuation of support for a graduate. And because we're building another program at the moment, which is called our Pathway to Professional program. So this isn't a qualification, but it's a support program, a mechanism where, so say if you've come out with a 2-year diploma of architectural technology and you're just starting out in the industry, maybe you haven't even got a job yet because you just haven't got a job yet, you can begin that program of support, which would probably take you from being a graduate, it would probably take you 5 years, which seems really probably intimidating, and we hope it won't be. As a student, you think, I've just done all my studying. Now you're wanting me to do something else. No, what it is, it's more of a support program to help continue to guide you toward that professional status that we hold, so that you're not left on your own and you've got the kind of markers along the way to see what, to demonstrate that either you have that competency or you can learn it with us, and it can take you on that pathway. So we can be responsible for supporting that person as a professional. You get them started at poly, which is fantastic, or at university, and we'll help them continue to grow and develop. I think that's the professional responsibility that we have as a professional body, and we want to do that. But the key is we all work together over that, right? We have to, institutions and professional bodies like us and others in the industry need to be closer together, have stronger relationships, and create those bridges. It's actually up to us to do that. And I wonder if that would help lead to more successful outcomes actually for the whole sector, for those people who are leaving and starting that whole brave new world in practice. I think we're going to have better outcomes for everybody if we put that sort of wraparound professional support around them.
I think you would have much better outcomes for everybody, including the clients, once you start to change. Because when you leave Polytech, you're still really pretty young, most people. 5 years might sound like a long time. In the course of your career, it's almost nothing, because your career could be 30 or 40 years long. So it's nothing. If I look back at my training, 5 years at university, 3 years at the Ministry of Works, 2 years in private practice, and then I got registered. That Ministry of Works training was unbelievably useful for me. It was phenomenal. They always gave me a project to look after on site. They always gave me a project that was documentation, and always gave me a project that included design. You can't get that easily now.
Yeah, do you know what? The minute you said Ministry of Works, I went up. So there's that golden ticket, right? That's that real support. Everyone I've ever talked to who's come out of the Ministry of Works speaks about it so fondly. It's a training ground for...
It's a training ground. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, really.
But it probably took me 3 years before I knew how I should behave as a professional. And then another couple of years in private practice to really hone that. And that was that 5-year period you're talking about. But there wasn't that support that you're talking about because it didn't exist. I was lucky that I got these great places. I worked in these fantastic places where I had real support, real growth, and they helped me to become registered as soon as possible. I think I was registered after 3 years or 3.5 years. It was great support. It was great knowledge.
Yeah, you're not the first person to share that with me. And I think that's one of my concerns, and I speak to some of our older members about this, is that if you speak to any of our members who are in their 70s, they'll talk about mentoring and supporting young designers like yourself when you came out. It was a professional responsibility to build the next generation of great designers. And that isn't there in the same way now.
No. So I spoke to somebody recently who lives nearby, and she was in the office when I was there, and we were talking about me coming around and starting my job, and I said, I felt like I was all on my own. And she said, but you weren't. Everybody in the office was watching you. Absolutely everybody. So it was a whole office looking after one person to make sure that one person in every day became better and became a professional and acted in a professional way.
Yeah, how do we get there? It's the bit we need to bring back, right? That pastoral, it's more than pastoral care as well. It was professional and pastoral. Nobody's going to actually let you really fall over. People had your back.
Yeah, I still really appreciate everything they did for me. Karen, what you're working with Ara and the
Concove,
Concove, that sounds fantastic, and I'm really pleased that you're doing something like that and moving things forward, because the public has to know that someone who belongs to ADNZ is held to a higher standard, that they're worth the money that they're being paid, that they're not just somebody like a draftsman drawing what's already existing. They've got that professional qualification, they've got the professional attitude, and a lot of the public forgets how much knowledge we've got about building, construction, management, site setup. There's just so much that we know, and it disappoints me that the public thinks that we charge too much for our services. In reality, we don't. Considering how much we know, we should be charging a lot more for our services.
Yeah, recently a couple of people have told me that some home builders are actively telling clients that you don't want to pay those design fees. You'll spend $25,000 and you won't get the house you want, or it won't be buildable. I've heard all sorts of things like that recently, which is really disappointing. And of course, those salespeople saying these things are implying like they're not paying anybody for the design, they're just giving it to the clients. So it's very interesting times in a tight market. I guess we're just going to continue to champion our members and what the quality mark represents as an ADNZ professional member, what you're getting. And that's incredibly good value, and that it's something you won't regret, and that you're going to get such a better home because your designer is going to bring something to this conversation, to this discussion, to this design for you, which you just wouldn't have even imagined. You just don't know yet, right? Sometimes it's hard to explain that to somebody who's never worked with a designer before. But I think one of the biggest challenges at the moment, I think that all professions are being challenged. People say to me, you wouldn't challenge a doctor over your diagnosis. And I said, actually, I think people are. I think there is much more questioning of professionals. And so therefore professionals need to get much better at communicating their value as well. So that's something they've got to actively work on. And so being part of being a professional is not assuming what it is your clients know or what the general public understand of you. And it's your responsibility to always communicate really clearly and really effectively your value. And that's a skill to learn.
It is. My understanding is that when people say you're too expensive, they don't understand the value. There's a great quote from Oscar Wilde. One of his characters says, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. I was arguing with a shopkeeper." The trouble with people these days, they know the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
It's
and
like
it still seems
old,
true.
Yeah. It's like that whole, what is that? That's a bit similar, that cost of one screw, 20 cents. Cost of knowing where to put that screw to solve that problem, $250 an hour. There's so much more to the story than people understand. It's pure education, and we need to continue to educate the public.
Absolutely. The public has to understand what the role of an architectural designer is, or an architect, and why it's worth the money that it is.
And it's our job to make sure that that is well articulated and that designers are able to stand behind that themselves as well. And I think we're just as responsible.
Karen, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. You've been very generous, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us.
It's lovely to be with you both. Thanks so much, Ethan. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you. Bye.